It's 9 p.m. Monday night. While the rest of the world slows down, you're tuning in to the Final Boss podcast. This is Motivation Mondays, where mindsets shift, hustle gets honored, and the 6 pillars of success get broken all the way down. We're talking motivation, resilience, sacrifice, consistency, persistence, and perseverance. Hosted by the one and only Turbo, the CEO, bringing real talk, raw stories, and relentless energy to spark your week with purpose. So lock in, take notes, and remember, success ain't just a dream, it's a discipline.
Welcome to the Final Boss podcast, Monday night edition, Motivation Monday. We are back in the building, man. Let me tell you. Oh, man, I had to take this week off. We went silent this week, man. My voice was gone. The week before, it was definitely struggling to hang on. And then it was gone. So we took a week off to rest the voice and get things right, man. Get things right and back in order. And I'm back. We are back and I am here. We are here, man. I am so glad to see you guys. I missed you guys. I miss doing the show, right? I miss doing the show. And you know what, man? It is quite peaceful, right? It is quite peaceful. Hey, Jacondi, how you doing? Waiting for some other people to come along. I know people were like, I was sitting out information today in reference to the show coming back today. So, I don't know if everybody got the message, but we are back in the building. Woo-hoo! Yes. Now, before we get started, let's welcome everyone. Oh, yes, welcome. Jacondi's here. The unconquerable Andrea is here. We got other people who are coming on board, man. Thank you, everyone who is joining us. We are here each and every last week. Now that we're back, Monday. Let's start with Sundays, right? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, man. 5 times a week at 9 p.m. live. 9 p.m. live, we are here, right? And tonight we're going into our episode of this segment of this show called Motivation Mondays. For those who don't know, Motivation Mondays. And to my smarts, to my motivators, to my warriors, to my final bosses, we are in the building. And they have a new grouping. They are now the sovereign, right? They are now the sovereign, the smarts, the final bosses, the warriors, and the motivators. They are what is called the sovereign. More about that to come, right? More about that to come. So to each and every single one of you that are watching with us, whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Kick, YouTube, and Spotify, thank you for joining us. And as always, this is for entertainment purposes only. And, right? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And welcome to the Final Boss Podcast, episode number 212, man, 212, as we are approaching season 5. Season 5 is the harvest. Season 5 is the harvest, man. What's the math on that, right? What is the math on that? We have 88 more shows to go. 88 more shows to go to season 5. And what a spectacular season it will be. Season 5 is the harvest. Season 5 is the harvest, right? So tonight's show, got a great show for you, man. Got a great show for you tonight. Episode number 212. We're going to talk about love transcends time and space, right? So love must be infinite, right? And now that you know that, you got to apply it. You have to apply it. And we're going to get into how you can apply it and understand how this is applicable to discipline, man. Discipline. Look, if you haven't gotten Go Time, which is now a bestseller, national bestseller, man, go get Go Time, All Aboard the Fired Up Train. Go Time, All Aboard the Fired Up Train. It's right here. Right? It's right here. You see it? You see it? It's right there. Yeah. Go pick up Go Time, All Aboard the Fired Up Train. Right? Whew. And y'all know the train is coming. It's Motivation Monday. You know the train is coming, man. So get ready to get on board the fired up train, right? Get on board the fired up train. Now, let me tell you, right? Let's get into the show. Let me start you somewhere, right? Somewhere uncomfortable, right? Let's talk about something uncomfortable. Because when was the last time somebody in a motivation space said the word love and actually meant it in the way a physicist would? We're talking science, right? We're talking science. Not the way your grandmother meant it on Sunday morning, right before you got to church. No. Not the way a greeting card means it in February or for Valentine's Day. No. And not the way a poet means it when they're trying to enact some level of emotion, right? No. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's give it up to, man, the one and only Dwight Turbo Dillard for becoming a national bestseller. Yeah, let's give it up for him, right? Hey, thank you for that. I appreciate it. But you know, man, let me tell you. And not the way someone who studies the actual structure, right, of the universe, right? The way someone who works with the laws governing time and space and energy and matter and means it. No, nobody in this space goes there. I've never heard anybody have this conversation. So we're going to have it tonight, right? And I would tell you exactly why. Because love got assigned to emotion somewhere along the way, right? And the emotion got assigned to vulnerability, right? And the vulnerability got assigned to weakness, right? And weakness got assigned to people who do not build empires, right? So the entire motivation and discipline community made a collective agreement to leave love at the door and talk about grind and hustle and sacrifice and execution and all the language that sounds hard enough to be taken seriously, right? And in doing that and making that agreement, this entire industry handed you a machine with no fuel source and told you to drive it across the continent, right? And here's the premise. Here's the premise I'm walking in with, and I need you to stay with me because this goes somewhere real, right? Love transcends time and space. That's not a metaphor. That's not a poetic device. That's not something you say at a funeral to make people feel better. Structurally, fundamentally, as a principle that the physical universe itself demonstrates repeatedly in documented and reproducible experiments. If something transcends time and space, it is not bound by either dimension, which means it has no beginning. It has no end, which means by every functional definition available to us, love is infinite, right? Love is infinite. And what else is infinite? God is infinite, right? God is infinite. This almighty universe that he created is infinite because he's infinite, right? This is episode 212, right? And we are in season 4, the rebirth. And the rebirth is not cosmetic. You do not rebirth the surface. You rebirth the foundation. Tonight, the foundation gets addressed. The philosophy layer gets rebuilt. And when this episode is over, you're going to have a framework that changes how you show up in every area of your life. Not for a week. We're talking permanently. So let's get locked in because this is the ignition. And we're going to burn tonight. So let's get on this fired up train. I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to ignite you, right? And there's a difference, and the difference matters, right? The difference matters. Motivation is something that happens to you, right? You watch a video, you hear a speech, you feel something surge in your chest, and you are motivated for 48 hours. And then the feeling fades, and you are back where you started, waiting for the next surge. That is not what we build here. Not on the Final Boss podcast. Not in the Final Boss community, not in the Final Boss nation. That's not what we build here, right? Ignition is structural. Ignition means something like those rockets. And the architecture of how you operate changes permanently, right? Ignition means what you do on Thursday morning when nobody is watching and nothing is working. And the voice in your head has 17 good reasons to stop, maybe even 100, right? Ignition means you keep going, right? Not because you feel like it, but because the operating system running underneath your actions has been rebuilt to run on something that does not need to feel like anything to function. That is what we build on. That's Motivation Monday every single week, right? The Final Boss runs 5 times a week. And this is Monday, Motivation Monday. This is the ignition. Tuesday is the pressure test, right? Tuesday is the pressure test with the sensei, right? Where we break down technology and apply pressure to ideas until only the real ones survive, right? And then on Wednesdays, right? Wednesdays is the civilizational mirror, where we go doctoral level on the technologies converging right now to reshape what it means to be human. And then on Thursdays, right? The mirror with our special guests, right? And Sunday is the sanctuary. That's where we slow it down and we go deep. All 5 shows operate under a single structural lens this season, the rebirth, right? Not a title, not as a condition, as a demand. The rebirth means the version of you that walked into season 4 does not walk out the other side unchanged. Something fundamental has to shift. The philosophy, the fuel, the operating agreement you have with yourself about what you are actually building and why, right? And why? And tonight, we're working on the fuel. because everything else that gets built in this season sits on top of what we establish here, right? 4 communities in this room tonight: the smarts, the motivators, the warriors, the final bosses, right? All 4 get addressed. All 4 become the sovereign, right? Every week it's non-negotiable. That is the architecture of this show, and the commitment does not change. Grab something to write with, get your pens and paper. Let's get ready to get into this business, and it's time to rumble, right? But before we build the framework tonight, I need to give you the brass tacks, because the brass tacks is the anchor of the show. This is the one sentence that contains the entire episode in the compressed form, and I need you to hear it. I need you to hear it now, right? This is the brass tacks. Discipline without love is punishment. Love without discipline is permission. The final boss operates where those 2 forces collide. That's from yours truly. Out of Go Time, all aboard the Fired Up train. Now, let's unpack that, right? Let's unpack the brass tacks, right? Discipline without love. Discipline without love is punishment. That's interesting. That is very, very interesting. You have met people who run entirely on discipline with 0 love underneath it, right? You've met those people. You can feel it when you're around them. They are efficient. They are precise. They are hard in a way that makes you tired just being near them. They build things. They accomplish things. They check boxes. And they hit metrics and produce results that look impressive on the outside, right? They look impressive on the outside. But spend enough time with them and you will notice something, right? You'll notice something. The things that they built feels like a cage. The things that they built feels like a cage. Because it is a cage. Because when discipline has no love underneath it, the discipline itself becomes the punishment. You wake up every morning and you submit to a regiment and regimen that has no meaning beneath the structure. And the structure gets heavier over time instead of lighter. Right? Because meaning is what makes weight bearable. And love is what produces meaning. Remove love and the discipline becomes a sentence you are serving rather than a vehicle you are driving. Love without discipline is permission. The half of the equation is equally broken and arguably more comfortable, which is why more people live in that space. Full of compassion, full of passion, full of vision, full of fire in every conversation, at every dinner table, at every late night conversation, right? The idea is incredible. It always is. The vision is always massive. The potential is always undeniable. And the execution calendar that they keep is always empty, right? Because love without discipline does not produce anything except emotion, right? It produces feeling without form, fire without direction, passion without structure. And that's expensive. That is an expensive form of waste. Potential that exists because you can feel it burning every single day and watch it produce nothing year after year. That's wasteful. The final boss operates where those two forces collide. Not one or the other, both at the same time, simultaneously, in the same person, in the same decision, right? That's discipline that gives love its form, right? When those two forces collide, you get something the world has no adequate word for yet. You get a human being operating at the total capacity, fueled by something infinite, executing with something precise. This is the final boss standard. That is what this episode is building toward, right? And here's the map for everything we're covering tonight. So you know exactly where we're going, and I want you to follow the architecture. We start with the physics. I'm going to make the case that love is not a feeling, it is not a force, and I'm going to use documented scientific phenomenon to make that case because smarts is in this room. And they deserve the evidence before the philosophy, and everybody else deserves to understand that what I'm saying tonight is not inspirational language. It's not inspirational language dressed up as a substance. It is that very substance, right? It is that substance. Then we're going to move into the diagnosis, right? Why most people in the room and most people in the discipline and grind culture that dominates the space are running on the wrong fuel, right? I'm going to name the 3 infinite fuels that most high performers operate on, and I'm going to show you exactly what they cost you and exactly where they break down. Okay? Then we build the framework. Love as operational principle has 4 specific application points that change how you make decisions, sustain momentum, maintain quality, and compound impact over time. We're going to map out all 4, right? And then we're going to go into the community. By the community, we're talking about the smarts. The smarts get scientific and analytical framework, right? Final bosses get the empire level application. Motivators get the leadership, right? And warriors, they get the translation from combat fuel to civilian legacy, right? Then we go back into go time and the fired up train, because everything we do here connects to the framework. Nothing in this episode is disconnected from the system we've already been building. Then we close with your action stack and your resources, right? We're gonna knock all those topics down, man. And here's where the episode separates from every other conversation about love you have ever had in a motivational context. We're going to go with the physics, right? We're going to go with the physics. A force in physics is defined as any interaction that changes the motion of an object. Forces have measurable properties. They have magnitude, they have direction, they have observable effects on matter and energy, right? And with every few exceptions, forces operate within the constraints of space-time. They are local. They obey the speed of light. They decay with distance. They are bound by the dimensions we can measure, right? And Albert Einstein in 1935, right, among some other scientific individuals, published a paper that will become one of the most debated documents in the history of physics. They described a scenario where two particles interact and then separate across any distance. Their argument was that measuring the state of one particle would instantaneously determine the state of the other, right? Einstein found this troubling. He called it spooky action at a distance. He did not believe it was real. He believed there had to be hidden variables, right? Information stored locally in each particle that explained the correlation without requiring instantaneous non-local connection, right? And then in 1964, John Bell developed a mathematical theorem called Bell's theorem, right? That created a testable framework for determining whether Einstein's hidden variable explanation or the non-local quantum explanation was correct. The experiments that followed most definitely and definitively confirmed quantum entanglement, right? And this is why this is important, because quantum entanglement, beyond reasonable scientific dispute, showed that two particles separated by any distance affect each other instantaneously, not fast, not nearly, instantaneously, right? The connection is non-local. It does not obey the rules of space. It does not obey the rules of time. It simply is. It exists. The universe contains real phenomena that are not bound by time or space, like our topic, like love, right? Now, I'm going to make a philosophical argument that is rooted in its observable human experience, right? And I want my smart specifically to stay with me, because this is where the framework gets applied, right? A mother in one city feels something shift in her chest before the phone rings with news about her child who, let's say, is getting deployed, right? The phenomenon is documented, studied, and repeated across cultures, and studied for centuries, with enough frequency that dismissing it as coincidence becomes the less scientific explanation, right? It's the less scientific position. The bond demonstrates properties consistent with non-local connection. A man invests his entire life building something. He passes away. And his influence over the people who loved him does not diminish when he passes. Decades later, they are still making decisions shaped by who he was, right? Still choosing bases on values he modeled, still building on foundations he established. His physical presence ended long ago. His impact did not. Love as a force persisted outside the timeline of the body that man carried, right? If a phenomenon demonstrates non-locality, meaning it is not constrained by distance and temporal independence, meaning it is not constrained by time, then by definitions, physics itself is not bound by space or time. Not to be too scientific, right? But that's the definition of infinite, right? Love is infinite. Love is infinite, right? Not as a feeling. As a force demonstrating properties, the physical universe itself confirms in quantum systems. The experience of love at the human level is the macro scale expression of a principle the universe encodes at the quantum level. Connection that transcends space, influence that transcends time, impact that continues beyond the physical existence of the source. This matters for one reason that is directly operational, right? Finite forces produce finite results. Infinite forces produce results that compound beyond the lifespan of the person generating them. If you want to build something that outlasts you, something generational, something that your great grandchildren are still shaped by, the only way to do that is to root your work in the only fuel source that operates on the same level, at the same time, and scale it as the legacy you're trying to build. The fuel source is love. It's love. You need love. Whatever you're doing, you need to put love in it. That's how it transcends. And it's available to you right now, tonight, in this season of the rebirth. And here's the diagnosis, right? Here's the diagnosis. And I need you to be honest with yourself during this episode, right? Because the diagnosis only works if you are willing to see it clearly. Most people running in high performance spaces, the entrepreneurs, the athletes, the builders, the grinders, the people who consume content like this every week are running their discipline on one of three fuels: anger, ego, fear, right? Anger, ego, fear, right? And every single one of them has a ceiling. And every single one of them corrodes the person running on them over time. We see this. You see it. You see it every day. Now, let me break all three down for you completely, right? Let me break all three down. Anger fuel is the most common. It's the most common entry point. Something happened. Something doubted you. Something doubted you specifically and publicly in a way that stuck. And it stuck like glue, right? Somebody left when you needed them to stay. Somebody overlooked you for an opportunity you deserved. Somebody told you that you were not the one. And you took that pain and you compressed it into rocket fuel and you built an engine around proving them wrong, right? I understand this fuel because I've used it and it works. And it works, right? In the short term, it works incredibly well. Anger creates intensity. Anger creates focus. Anger creates a very specific kind of relentless drive that is almost impossible to manufacture artificially. The problem is that anger is consumable, right? It burns as it goes. And here's a specific moment where anger fuel fails. It's the moment you prove the point. It's in that moment when you prove it. The moment you achieve the thing, the moment the person who doubted you has no acknowledge to the result, right? At that exact moment, the fuel that you drove, that was driving you to achieve what you were trying to achieve, it evaporates. It evaporates. And you standing at the top of the mountain, you spent years climbing with no fuel left and no idea why you feel nothing. A lot of people who achieve big things collapse immediately afterward. And the world calls it success anxiety, or one of the trending words that's trending right now, imposter syndrome, right? It's not. It's an empty tank. It's an empty tank. The fuel was anger, and the anger had one destination, and you arrived at that destination, right? That's where the discipline of the fired up train comes in at. Because ego, now let's talk about ego. Ego fuel is quieter and more sophisticated in many ways. It's also more dangerous, right? The engine here is the need to be perceived as the one who made it. The need for the title and the platform and the acknowledgement and the status. The need to be seen by the specific people who opinion matters to you as someone who succeeded. Ego fuel produces impressive outputs with hollow interiors. You can build a significant business on ego. You can build a platform on ego. You can accumulate achievements on ego. But spend enough time inside the thing you built on ego, and you will feel the hollowness of it. Because everything built on ego is fundamentally about the builder's image rather than the mission's impact. An image requires constant maintenance. The moment the image is threatened, the entire structure shakes because there is no deeper foundation underneath it. Ego builders are also extraordinarily vulnerable to comparison because the ego engine is always checking its position relative to other engines. And in a world where there is always someone with a bigger number, a larger platform, a higher valuation, ego as a fuel source keeps you in a perpetual state of inefficiency, no matter what you accumulate, right? Now, let's talk about fear. Let's talk about fear fuel, right? Fear fuel is the most universal. The most people in this room and in every room I've ever spoken in are running primarily on fear. Fear of going back to broke. Fear of falling in front of the people who watched you start. Fear of proving the right voice inside your own head that has always questioned whether you were actually the one, right? Fear of the specific version of failure that haunts you personally. Fear is extraordinarily effective as a short-term driver. Fear will get you out of the bed. Fear will get you up to make you go to work when you don't want to work, right? Fear will push you past your comfort zones that comfort would never breach. But fear as a long-term operating system, it corrodes everything it touches. It corrodes your health because the stress response that fear activates was designed for a short burst, not decades of continuous operation. It corrodes your relationships because people running on fear are either controlling or distant or both. Because connection feels like vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like exposure, and exposure feels like threat, right? It corrodes your judgment because every decision made from fear is fundamentally a defensive decision, right? You're always protecting instead of expanding, always managing downside instead of pursuing upside, right? And you cannot build a legacy from a defensive position. Legacies are built by people who were willing to build in public in pursuit of something they loved more than the fear of failure. All three fuels have ceilings, right? All three fuels corrupt the builder while building. And the most critically are all three fuels are finite. They run out, or they change into something unrecognizable and take you with them. Love is the only infinite fuel. Love. Love for the mission. Love for the people. Love for the people, the mission is built to serve. Love for the craft itself. Love for the experience. Right? Love for the legacy you're constructing. For the people who are not born yet. Right? I tell you all the time. I tell you directly. I tell you about my daughter. I tell you about my family. Right? I tell you about, she's my primary. Right? I tell you about the things I've been involved in, the places I've worked, the things I've seen. Not out of ego, right? Not out of fear, but out of a place of love. Those things are specific, named, right? I give directional love to it. I talk about generational wealth, right? I talk about being responsible on building that generational wealth on her behalf. That particular love does not burn out. The love that I have for my family, all my loved ones, right? Both biological and non-biological. Those who are dear to me, I build for them. That love does not require validation. That love runs at 3 a.m. when the work is hard and the results are slow, and the evidence says it would be easier to stop. That love runs when no one is here to watch this show. That love is there when I'm in the quiet, finishing books, when nobody's around. Because that love does not require evidence to continue operating. That love is infinite, and it's the foundation under the evidence. That is the fuel conversion available to you tonight. And the rebirth is the right season to make it. And you're probably wondering, rebirth, season 4. And why this is specifically a season 4 conversation. All right? Because the rebirth actually demands structurally, right? Not what it sounds like. It's what it demands, right? And rebirth is not a renovation. This distinction matters enormously, and I need you to hold on to it, right? A renovation keeps the existing structure and updates the surface. You sand the floors, you repaint, you replace the fixtures, you replace furniture, but the foundation stays, right? You move out, somebody else moves in. The frame stays, right? The load-bearing elements stay. You are still living in the same house. You just changed it. And if you moved out of that house, somebody moved in and they changed it, right? A rebirth replaces the structure, not the paint, not the frame, not the foundation. The load-bearing architecture Everything that was holding the old version up gets replaced with something fundamentally different, right? Different materials, different design, different capacity, even different people, right? You cannot perform a rebirth while keeping the same fuel source. There it is. You can't do it. You cannot perform a rebirth while keeping the same fuel source. Your fuel needs to be love, not fear, not ego, not anger. It needs to be love, right? If you came to season 4 still running on anger from something that what happened to you in season 2, you're going to rebuild on the same cracked foundation with a different exterior and call it new. Shame on you. Shame on you, right? Shame on you. Sit down. Don't go nowhere. No bathroom break, no hallway pass. Sit your ass down, right? Class is in session, right? If you came in running on ego from achievements that stopped compounding, you're going to chase the same validation through a new platform and wonder why it feels identical to what you've already had, right? You're just repeating the cycle. And if you came in here running on fear, every decision you make this season will be defensive, regardless of what language you use to describe it. The rebirth demands the fuel conversion. It's time to upgrade. It's time to go from 87 to 93, people. Right? It's time to go from 87 to 93. Right? And this is not optional. It is not a supplementary upgrade that you can add later. I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. The engine can handle it now. No. It is the structural requirement for the work of this season to produce anything that lasts. And here's the piece that should make this urgent for every person in here, right? Because season 5, the harvest is coming soon. Episode number 300 is around the corner, right? The harvest. You cannot harvest what you did not plant. And you cannot plant something that will outlast you if it is not rooted in something infinite, right? Whew. Man, I'm on fire, right? I'm burning up. You are in the planting window right now. Every season of season 4, every week between now and episode 299, this is when the seeds go into the ground. The fuel those seeds are watered with determines everything about what the harvest looks like. Finite fuel produces a finite harvest. Anger-grown things produce anger-shaped results. Ego-grown things produce ego-shaped legacies that collapse when the ego is no longer there to maintain them. Fear-grown things produce structures that the next generation is afraid to inhabit. Love, my friends, love-grown things, they compound, right? Love-grown things get stronger over time without their original builder present. Love-grown things become the foundation other people build on. You want to get to episode 300? You want to get to the harvest? Because the harvest represents everything that this season demands. Then the fuel conversion happens right now in this episode. Tonight, it's time for you to upgrade, right? time for you to upgrade. Now, let me make this completely clear and operational, right? Because a feeling without a framework is still just a feeling. And we do not build on feelings here. We build on frameworks. Love as a principle and discipline has 4 specific application points. These are the places where the conversion from finite fuel to infinite fuel changes something concrete and measurable in how you operate. And here's application point 1. The clarity test. Right? The clarity test. When you face a decision, most high performers default to the logic question first. What makes the most strategic sense? I ask myself that question all the time, right? What has the best projected ROI, return on investment? What is the safest move given the current risk landscape? These are not bad questions, but they are incomplete questions because they are asking the machine to evaluate itself. And the machine always has a bias towards self-preservation and comfort disguised as analysis. The love-fueled question cuts differently. What does this build for the people and the mission I love? Whose life gets better or worse based on that decision? Right? What would I choose if I were not afraid of the outcome? That is not soft. This is actually harder than the logic question because it requires you to be honest about what you love at the deepest level. And you have to make decisions accountable to that love rather than accountable to your own comfort, your own ego, and your own fear of being wrong. And the practical result is that the clarity test eliminates a significant percentage of the analysis paralysis, right? And that's what stops a lot of high performers. Right? And it stops them cold in their tracks. When you know what you love and you're honest about it, most decisions that feel complex, that feel complex, become straightforward. Because love knows the answer before logic can calculate it, right? Before love can calculate it. And here's the application point 2. This is the endurance multiplier, right? The endurance multiplier, right? Discipline built on love sustains through conditions that break discipline built on finite fuel. This is the application point with the most empirical support. Look at the research on sustained performance under adverse conditions, right? Look at military operations. Look at athletes endurance athletes, right? Look at entrepreneurs who've been in the game for a long time. The common variable in people who sustain performance when conditions are worse is not superior willpower or superior training or superior intelligence. It is a superior connection to meaning. And meaning is what love produces. The entrepreneur who genuinely loves the problem they are solving works through failure cycles that destroy ego-driven operators because the failure does not threaten the love. The failure is just information. The operator who loves the outcome works through conditions that fear-driven operators flee because the love is not a reaction to those conditions. Love is prior to those conditions. And then endurance, multiplied by love, does not have an upper ceiling. That is the practical application. Every other performance variable has a ceiling determined by biology or resources or time. Love is an endurance multiplier that keeps raising the ceiling because it keeps reconnecting you to a reason to continue that does not decay with difficulty, right? And then it's application point 3. This is the quality standard, right? This is the quality standard. This application point right here, right? It's counterintuitive. And it is the one that surprises people most when they actually implement it. When you love the work itself and love the people the work is for, your tolerance for your own mediocrity drops to 0. Not because you fear judgment, not because you need the outcome to validate your identity, but because love requires you to give the mission everything available to you. You got to give it everything you got, even if there's no reward. And you have to do this every single time with no exception. With no exception, right? The author who loves the reader writes the extra chapter, not because it's required, but because the reader deserves it. The veteran who loves the mission runs a extra security check, not because the regulation requires it or demands it, but because the people depending on him deserve it. The CEO who loves the team and the company he's building makes the difficult decisions early, all the time, instead of late, because the company and the team deserves it. They deserve the leadership. That love right there is honest and it's in real time, right? Listen, love sets a standard. Love sets a high standard than ego. It sets a higher standard than ego, right? And it sets a more sustainable standard than fear, right? Because it's not trying to impress anyone. And it is not trying to avoid anything. It is trying to serve something and service at the level love demands. And it has no finish line. And it has no acceptable minimums. And then there's application 4, right? The compounding effect. This is the application point that connects directly to the physics we established earlier. Every action taken from love builds something that persists beyond the action itself. Every action taken from fear, ego, or anger produces outputs that decay the moment the fuel stops. Fear built structures that collapse when the fear is resolved. Ego builds structures that collapse when the ego is no longer present. Anger builds structures that collapse when the anger burns out. Love, my friends, to my smarts, to the sovereign, to the smarts, motivators, warriors, and final bosses. They're the sovereign. To the sovereign. Love built structures keep building after the builder stops. Because the people the builder loved carry the structure forward. The compound interest of love-driven work is generational, right? Your children make decisions shaped by the values you modeled. Their children are shaped by the values they carry forward from you. The community you served with love continues to be shaped by what you built long after your name stops being spoken. That is only possible if the foundation is infinite. We have established that only love, that we have established this, that only love is infinite. Right? I think I got a splinter on my finger. Right? 4 application points. Clarity, endurance, quality, compounding. Write them down. Take notes. This is the operational framework. This is what actually changes when you make the fuel conversion, right? This is the application that you make the fuel conversion. Now, I'm going to go over a little bit, so bear with me, right? Bear with me. Stay with me. I'm going nowhere. Right? Now, let me bring the full framework together before we close, right? Because I want you to leave here tonight with the equation clear in your mind. That infinite fuel in a finite machine. Your body is finite. Your time is finite. Your current skill set is finite. Your capital is finite. Your network has limits. Every external resource you work with operates under the constraints of time and space. Every single one, all finite. Love, as we established through the physics of quantum entanglement and the observable evidence of human connection, persisting beyond time and distance, is not finite. It's non-local, temporarily independent. It is infinite. When you run on an infinite fuel source through a finite machine, you do not transcend the machine's physical limits. The body still has limits. The hours in the day still have limits. The capital still has limits, but you maximize those limits completely. Every available unit of capacity gets used because the fuel source never runs short. The machine runs at its full design potential, sustained over the longest possible operational period, producing the deepest possible impact. The fired up train is not for a season. For as long as the mission requires it, the fired up train is right there. The fired up train is built on love. And that is what love-driven principle and discipline produces. Not a superhuman, a fully human. Completely utilized, properly fueled, operating at a total capacity in the direction of something that matters enough to deserve it. You connect this to the Go Time framework. And tier 1, you find out who you be. In tier 2, you find out what you build. In tier 3, you find out how you dominate. Tier 1 is the identity layer. The fuel question lives here. Who you decide you are at the foundation determines what fuel you operate on. If the tier 1 identity is rooted in love for the mission and love for the people the mission serves, then the fuel is infinite, and tier 2 and tier 3 have no ceiling. Tier 2 is the execution layer. What you actually build with the identity you declared in tier 1. Love fueled tier 1 produces tier 2 work that carries the quality standard we have discussed. It carries the endurance. It carries the compounding effect. And tier 3 is the domination layer. The domination built on infinite foundation is the only domination that persists. Everything else is temporary. It's all temporary, right? Love-rooted domination is legacy, right? The fired up train, U and P, which is understanding and purpose, those 2 letters are the bridge between tier 1 and tier 2. Purpose without love is a career. Purpose rooted in love is a calling. The train that left the station in Go Time 2 does not live on willpower. It lives, it leaves when the purpose underneath the discipline is rooted deep enough in something infinite that no obstacle is is a part of any external environment. It's heavy enough to stop the motion. That root is love applied as principle. And that is what we established tonight, right? And here's the verdict, right? Here's the verdict. It's not even, there's no summary. Here's the verdict, right? You've been running on finite fuel and building finite things and wondering why the achievement never feels as large as the sacrifice. That is the fuel problem. The sacrifice was real. The fuel was wrong. It's time for you to upgrade. The upgrade is available. It's always been available. It is not a secret and it is not new, but it requires a level of honesty about what you actually love that most people in performance spaces are not willing to access because the grind culture told them that love was soft and soft was weakness and weakness was disqualifying, right? That lie has a body count. Every empire that collapsed from the inside, every high performer who achieved everything and felt nothing, every relationship destroyed by a person running on anger or ego or fear who never found a conversion point, that lie built all of those outcomes, right? All of those outcomes. Tonight, you have the physics. You have the framework. You have the 4 application points. You have the community-specific direction. Now, here's what you need to do with it, right? Your action stack coming out of tonight. Number 1, name your current fuel and be honest about it. Is it anger, ego, or fear, or some combination? Write it down with no judgments, with no rationalizations. Just name it. And number 2, right? Identify the love layer underneath your mission. Go past the money. Go past the status. Go past the revenge narrative, right? Get down to the specific people whose lives are different because of what you're building, and you name them. Make them real. Give them faces. And then number 3, right? Take one decision you've been making from fear or ego or anger and remake it from a place of love, and do it this week. Start tomorrow. One decision. Concrete, applied, not theoretical, right? And then number 4, right? Number 4. Come back. Come back. Come back on Wednesday for the civilizational mirror of the merger, right? Because we're going doctoral level on the technology converging right now, and it is reshaping the boundary between human consciousness and network systems, right? That is not optional viewing for anyone in this room who intends to be relevant in the next decade. And number 5, right? 5. Share this episode, like, share, subscribe, right? With one person, just one, in the world who is running on the wrong fuel and who does not know how to name what they're feeling. You know who they are. Send this episode to them right now, right? This is season 4 of the Rebirth, right? It's not a theme. It is a structural demand. The philosophy gets rebuilt here. The fuel gets converted here. The legacy begins its real foundation here, right? Plant the seeds in the rebirth. Harvest at episode 300. Harvest it at episode 300, right? Harvest it at episode 300. The harvest will be here soon. You'll be here before you know it. And as always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. This has been the Final Boss Podcast. Episode number 212, Love Transcends, right? And if this episode marinates within your spine, don't gatekeep, marinate it. Don't gatekeep, right? Don't gatekeep. And remember, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And as always, be balanced, be equal, be smart. That is our show for tonight. Episode number 212, Love Transcends. Y'all have a great evening. And I'll see you tomorrow for Tech Tuesday with this to say, right? And then I'll see you on Wednesday for the merger. And then I'll see you on Thursday for a special guest. And then again on Sunday for sitting down. Listen, we're back. We're back, people. And we're better than ever. Y'all have a great one. Talk to you soon. Have a good one.